we'll give you some thoughts. I'll make the presentation, and then I'll give you the conclusion. So my thoughts today. Uh, I've been wanting to do a podcast, and life just keeps getting in the way. There's always something else to do. Something else always takes priority. So I guess in the interest of progress, I'm going to carry on in this fashion. This is not the way to do it. I understand. But this is what the fuck I have time for. Um, so I think we've been discussing, evil people, bad people, uh, immorality, etc. And I've been trying to categorize it for you so that we do this in a structured manner. So we start at the bottom, right? We're going from least harmful to the most harmful, um, and we've made it to the next tier. So we discussed tier three. We're now in tier two, right? So we're climbing the ladder. And what I'm going to discuss today are plain ass criminals, and specifically community criminals. I have developed my graphics. I've owed you some graphics. What's up, Sergeant White? I see you out there, man. Um, or Chief White. Holy shit, my bad. And anyway, um, I used some graphics. I developed all my graphics. It took quite a while. They still look like shit. However, they serve the purpose. And, once we get the real podcast created, we'll post the graphics. And maybe if anybody gives a shit, they can follow along. So let's start the presentation. Don't want to waste too much time with that. Here we go. So we began this conversation about dark entities in this work by categorizing relevant but more mundane and moral behavior in lower level tier 3 characters. Beginning at the bottom of this tier were the trolls, followed by the addict, then the opportunist, and finally a discussion about the 7 deadly sins. While none of these groups stand out as operating in the extremes of malevolency, the different categories serve as gateways to more vile behavior. Each group serves as a gateway of increasing severity with regard to reprehensible and truly criminal behavior that littered our streets with blood, victims, and seeds of discontent that perpetuates worse types of crime and cruelty. From the subtle gateway of trolling behavior to the gateway of evil or self-enslavement provided by the 7 deadly sins, these gateways define paths that lead us all to individual and collective catastrophe. We will now begin to climb the ladder that breaks the seal of the vessel that contains the evil genie who provides for our wishes of criminal accomplishment. While crossing the boundary from solely immoral to both immoral and criminal behavior does not automatically sentence a man, woman, or group or other societal structure to eternal damnation, crossing the threshold into the next tier of malevolency does provide for a direct path to a darker and possibly a permanent, more punishing fate. I continue to outline this behavior in the interest of informing my brothers and sisters that there is always a better way to conduct our lives that serves the purpose of improving our existence, our lot in life, and directly and or indirectly the lives of others. This all comes from the observation that seemingly daily, the cruelty that presents itself in the form of war, crime, abuse of power, misrepresentation of facts, the omission of truth, plain-ass lies, corruptly executed religious mandates, and all other types of deviance perpetrated by people in power against the subjugated populations they purport to lead is unpalatable. Not only to me, but to the vast majority of humans that simply want to exist in an environment that allows for them to earn an honest living and live in relative peace. I understand that it is impossible to live in the utopia depicted in romanticized movies of a perfect world where good always conquers evil. But I will always be of the contention that we can significantly improve the lives of the planet's citizenry by simply observing our own comportment and getting our own individual lives in order. In this manner, collectively, we can be a good neighbor to our brothers and sisters and maybe eventually work together to repair the faults of our failed modern forms of leadership, the leadership that presents itself as presidents, elected governments, dictatorships, warlords, prime ministers, and any other title of leader that is currently rated as a 0 in terms of improving the lives of not just the average citizen, but also our most marginalized, forgotten, and those whose dark souls simply need exposure to some sort of positive perspective. All right, so that's the formal piece. As I was saying there, damn. All you have to do is look around, go outside, watch the news, and you can see some motherfucker acting a fool. And it's kind of sick. The biggest problem I have with it is it's not just the common man. I get it. There's always been crime and criminals and shit. But if you look across the globe, and ignore the citizen for a while and simply focus on the leadership, you can see, I mean, I'm challenged to name a leader who behaves in a manner that I guess speaks to the qualities that we're told a leader is supposed to present. They're supposed to be moral. They're supposed to be an example. You're supposed to want to follow them. And of course, people want to follow these people, but who's following them? Other fucking criminals. So essentially, most countries are some sort of legitimized mafia or organized criminal entity as opposed to a legitimate government. I don't think that I'm misreading that at all. And so we're going to get to all that. Those people are more geared towards the tier 1, the tier 1 type of criminal. However, it starts somewhere, right? And where did it start? Those people were born somewhere. They learn these types of things. And I guess my challenge is to tease out what those behaviors are. Again, to identify them in ourselves so we can improve our own behavior and hopefully influence the behaviors of our brothers and sisters so that we can stop propagating these shitty motherfucking types of leaders that are currently in power. They can suck a dick. All right, so today we're going to talk about tier 2 criminals. These are plain ass criminals. That's the broader category. In tier 2, we have 3 major categories. And we're going to start with the third major category, which are plain ass criminals. And you know what I mean. They're just plain motherfuckers committing crime. But there's levels to all this stuff. And there are 6 groups under the plain ass criminals group. And we're going to start today with the community criminals. This one should be a little bit fun, hopefully. I'm sorry, we're not to the fun one yet. This one's kind of mundane. However, you'll quickly understand what I'm talking about and how these types of criminals, they're not the gateway. They've already crossed the boundary into criminality, but these things build on themselves. And if you start as a community criminal, you're not destined to climb the tiers of malevolency, but you're more likely to. And so you got to watch yourself, watch your behavior. First, we're going to start with DUIs. So the drunk driver. I think we all understand who that is, what they do, how that works, what the dangers are. Drunk drivers kill people on the road all the time. You do not want to escalate that ladder, right? So we talked about the different tiers. So murderer is absolutely in tier 1. We could talk about manslaughter, and we could have the intellectual argument about how maybe that's an accident and the evil doesn't reside in that person's heart. While I agree with that, I also agree that we know better. We understand the consequences of our actions. And again, in full transparency, I am a hypocrite. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've driven intoxicated. It was plain wrong. I should have never done it. And I was very fortunate that one, I never got caught. So I didn't, mess up my life and the lives of my kids. Because of course, a DUI is very expensive. It takes time and money. And that's taking money away from my family. But I never got caught, or worse, never did I get in an accident that hurt other people. I won't say that I didn't get in an accident that that damaged property. And there are victims there too, but I drove away. So I didn't face the consequences of my actions when I was driving drunk. And again, it's just good fortune that I didn't get caught and I didn't really hurt anybody. However, that is not the case for a lot of people. People drive drunk, they get in crashes and they ruin their lives over just a night of fun and debauchery. Again, I don't. That's how we live our modern life, but we can modify that. I think drinking is down, especially for the newer generations, the millennials, and the generations that follow after them. In general, also, I think drinking is down among older generations. So that's progress. I think we're starting to understand the health implications, but it has to do more about um, our criminal behavior, for me anyway. And the more we reduce that, the safer we keep our population, and the better you can do with your life. It's not complicated. Let's move on. The next community type of criminal is a cyber criminal. I hate these pussies because they're cowards. If anybody can hide behind a keyboard and do some shit, come out and rob me, take my fucking wallet. I might respect you then. I probably won't, but I'll have a semblance of respect. At least I got a chance, a fighting chance. Cyber criminals can ruin people's lives. They ruin their financial lives. They ruin people's reputations online. It's just kind of a sick way to commit crime. It's a modern dichotomy where you can affect somebody's life without actually even ever facing them or knowing them or understanding who they are. And I think that's an ultimate type of cruelty, because you're victimizing somebody who you don't know. You don't know their life circumstance. And I mean, it doesn't make it correct either way. It just seems more cowardly. I think it's just that aspect of it is repugnant. And if you want to be a bitch and a coward, do cybercrime. Next one are drug dealers. Okay, community drug dealers. What kind of drug dealer am I talking about there? I'm not talking about the guy or gal who makes $10,000 a week selling drugs on the corner. That person is a huge distributor, and they are not in tier two. They are much they are in tier two, but they're in a much higher category in the tier. They're not a plain ass criminal. Plain ass drug dealers are selling a few rocks or however it works these days. They're making a few $100s a day, or maybe a couple thousand, few $1,000s a month doing their dealings, and they're more of a nuisance, a community nuisance. But you don't just have one drug dealer; you have several community drug dealers in your neighborhood, and that's what creates the chaos. I mean, well, never mind, one creates chaos, but three or four or five of them definitely creates a lot of nonsense. And if you think about the drug dealer lifestyle, it's a business. It's a criminal business. However, it's a business nonetheless. And in business, there's always competition. And so what happens is, very quickly, you start to climb into the higher tiers, because drug dealers typically carry guns. You need protection, protection for your product, and protection for your finances, your money, the money gained, because there's such a thing called stick up kids. Of course, those guys are higher up on the tiers of evil. But the street drug dealer isn't necessarily there yet, but frequently and more often than not, the street drug dealer will quickly climb the tiers. Why? Because now they're committing assaults, or they're robbing another drug dealer, or they're assaulting another drug dealer to protect their turf, or worse, they're having shootouts on the street to protect their territory so that they can get all the customers. And shootouts on the street definitely create innocent victims. Definitely could kill anybody, good people, innocent people, and the bad guy as well. Criminals killing criminals seems like a good idea, but not when you're in the crossfire between those two criminals. So it's just absolute chaos. So very quickly, again, you go from being a community drug dealer, and you're going to end up higher on the tier, because that's the name of the game. You got to protect your turf, protect your territory, and you don't do it by asking politely for the other guy to leave. You pull out your gun and you start capping, and that's not good. So again, fix your shit. Don't fucking sell drugs. Get off the fucking street and get a regular job. That takes balls. Getting a regular job takes balls. I was a soldier for a while, and pulling out your weapon and shooting at somebody does take courage, but it depends on the context. Shooting at other drug dealers and little grannies on the street so you can fucking sell your product, that's cowardly. You're not necessarily the cyber criminal type of cowardly, but you're still a bitch. So, community. Next up are the drug manufacturers, and I'm not talking about, again, the people in the jungle stomping on the coca leaves with their feet, working on behalf of a cartel. That's not who I'm talking about. Those are big, giant distributors. Those are people that deliver the product here for the end user. I'm talking about the drug manufacturers that set up their meth lab in a house, or they set up their weed growing operation in a neighborhood in a house. They're low level criminals, but they're a community nuisance. Again, they just create so much havoc, because let somebody find out about that weed spot, the house that's growing weed, and see how many people want to come and get into there to steal the final product. It's not complicated. And never mind that. The type of person who shows up to the house to collect the inventory could be being followed. They might draw different or more types of criminal to the area. And again, they create havoc for the community. The meth dealer, or I'm sorry, the meth manufacturer, they're not specialized chemists. They're just people following a recipe that they got on the internet, and they use volatile chemicals. They create toxic waste and toxic hazards in the neighborhood. Not only that, but it's a safety hazard in terms of explosions. I think we've heard it all before. The meth house that down the street exploded. Who suffers for that? Everybody in the community. The kids see that. They see horrific examples of the types of behavior that are demonstrated by grown-ups, because typically it's grown-ups doing all this shit. It's typically grown-ups doing the DUIs, the cybercrime, typically grown-ups, maybe not so much the drug dealers, because higher level drug dealers tend to get the younger kids to sell the drugs because there's less consequences for the younger people. But the higher level drug dealer is a bitch, because who gets a kid to do the crime for them? I'll never understand that. And same thing with the drug manufacturers. You're just a bad example. And not only that, but now you're creating more crime, because that product will go to a low level drug dealer, and there you go. You're creating a horrible chain of events. And again, you only stand to climb the ladder of evil, to climb the ladder of darkness, by participating in this type of crime. This is true malevolent criminal activity. It's not benign. It is not, well, I was only selling a bag of weed. You were selling and distributing illegal drugs in a community where there are children walking back and forth to school, outside playing, trying to ride their bike, a community where people are trying to go to work, earn an honest dollar, not a bitch ass dollar. And you're just making the whole environment shitty for the entire community, because you're too lazy to go to work, or you're too lazy to call the Uber and not drive drunk. You're too lazy to fucking go get a regular job and not scam little old ladies on the internet for their fucking last dollar, right? And it's fucking pathetic. I I don't dislike criminals. I think life deals us our hand, and we have to do our best to play it. And sometimes it leads us down dark paths. But once we understand the difference between right and wrong, the meaning of an alternate path, the meaning of a better way of life, the meaning of an honest dollar, the meaning of what true hard work means. Hard work is not getting up at 5 and dealing till 3 in the morning. That's fucking gay. That's fucking easy. Anybody can do that. A fucking kid could do it. Obviously, the kids, those people who are doing that shit, the kids. But it's highly consequential for the community involved, and you're only serving to perpetuate more criminals and more criminal activity, and that's tragic. You're part of the problem. Um, you complain, or not you, but people complain frequently about how they're a product of their environment. You know how you can change your environment? Don't participate. You do nothing. Don't deal drugs. Don't drive drunk. Don't get behind the computer and do cybercrime. You can get a high paying job for your technical skills. You don't have to commit cybercrime. Um, and besides that, you're sacrificing your I'll just say, I think that's the right word. You're sacrificing your manhood by being a cyber criminal because you're just stealing from behind a keyboard. That's easy. Go confront somebody and take their money, punks. Um, and of course, the drug piece. That's uh, deleterious to a neighborhood. Brings property value down. So now you have people who are trying to make an honest living, uh, trying to purchase a home to develop some equity in it, because that's probably the only big financial gain that person or that family is going to make in that lifetime. And you're ruining it for them. That you're preventing the ability for a generational wealth within your own community. And then you want to complain that you don't have opportunity. Well, if you're selling drugs in your neighborhood, you're preventing the opportunities. You're the one perpetuating the problem. So I'm not trying to be too judgmental. No, fuck that. I'm being absolutely judgmental because that's shitty. Especially if you know better. But there's such a thing as redemption. And how do you redeem yourself? I don't know if you can go back and unring bells if you hurt people. Some people are not willing to forgive you. But you can move into a better space and stop doing that. Stop creating victims. And it's not complicated. Just stop doing whatever you're doing. And should you provide some sort of recompense for the people in your neighborhood, maybe that you owe them that. Maybe you go out there and pull security and keep fucking drug dealers from hanging out on the corner. I mean, if you have the balls to do that. It's easy to sell and distribute on the corner. Go protect your neighborhood. That's fucking hard. Do you have the balls to do that? I don't think so. But you could try, and I would applaud you for that. Fucking do it and fucking document that shit. I bet you can make $1 doing that. That's an honest living. And so that wraps up today's little spiel. We haven't done this in a couple weeks. I'd like to do it weekly. The next episode will be a little bit more entertaining because we're going to talk about pimps and prostitutes and other shit. Because again, those are lower level criminals. People in tier 2, these are the characteristics, just so we know what we're talking about. These are legitimized and non-legitimized entities with an evil bent. They're organized. They do evil in the face of good, in the face of God, and in the face of the universe. But here's the caveat. They're possibly victims of systems and circumstance. They're possibly victims of a poor educational system, a poor tax system that doesn't provide quality schools for people who live in communities that exist in lower tax brackets where less tax income is generated to support those types of positive programs for those communities. They could be victims of circumstance when you're born poor and now you're born and you live in a place where you can't get an education. Maybe it leads you to make very poor decisions, or maybe that really is your only route to make a living, to make some money so that you can feed yourself, to feed your family. But eventually it simply becomes a crutch and an excuse to not go to work. And that's what I'm talking about. Once you're able to do better, it is your responsibility to do better. And you don't have to believe me. I'm not God. I'm nothing like that. I'm just a guy who happens to have seen a lot of bullshit in his life. And not only that, but I can turn on the TV and I can observe our leaders doing the same shit. And obviously it's not going to work from the top down. We've got to improve the system from the bottom up, because nobody's coming to help us. Billionaires only want more of our money. I read every day how people are losing their jobs en masse, and the CEO gets a $1 billion payout. And I'm sorry, $1 million payout. Some of them make a billion, but most of them it's in the millions, but it's in the tens of millions, hundreds of millions. And I lost my job. I don't understand. So, we're gonna keep climbing the tiers, and I can't wait to get to tier one because we're talking shit. We're gonna talk some shit about these motherfuckers. And next week we'll talk shit about some pimps and hoes. Later.